All right, we are live. Good evening. My name is Crystal Walker. I am one half of Ask A Walker here on Where to Live in Northern Virginia. My partner in crime is missing today, so it's just going to be me with you guys this evening. So, welcome. Thank you for joining us. This week, we are going to be talking about Prince William County. As you know, each week we do a different part of Northern Virginia. So, last week's video was on Fairfax County. This week, we're going to focus on Prince William County. The neighborhood we're going to focus on is Lake Ridge. And from this week, I believe next week, we move on to Arlington. And then we finally end up in the city of Alexandria before we start over again in December. So thank you for joining me this evening. We usually go through a quick little story where we share some insight into an experience that we previously had with the client before moving on to market stats. Something that's going on in the area or a specific neighborhood. So as I said, today we're going to be talking about Lake Ridge. And then finally end up with a few things to do. And I'll take your questions throughout the time that we're together. So I guess we'll get started with like I said, a little story time. So I was speaking with Abraham earlier today, and we're actually talking about a previous client. And well, this particular client, they were sellers and they were looking to relocate or move because they purchased their home maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And at the time when they made their purchase, they had kids, but they were little kids, toddlers, I believe. So they really didn't spend any time thinking about the school. Thinking about the schools that were near the property they decided to buy. Now, granted, Abraham and I were not their agents when they purchased that property. We met them last year. But they purchased the home and they really didn't think about the school at all. And so I just want to share why I think it's important, whether you have kids or not, to consider the schools when you're looking for a property. So they purchased the home, and finally, when their kids are old enough to attend school, they quickly found out that their home was actually located, and it was a very nice home, by the way. Their home was actually located in one of the lower rated schools in the county. It was considered a less than desirable school, and so they were not pleased immediately with the school, and so they put their kids into private school for a while before ultimately deciding to relocate. And so I say that it's important, and it's something that we stress in a lot of our videos. You want to research the schools. Like I said, whether you have kids or not, I think it's important for a couple of reasons. If you have kids, you want to make sure that you do some research into the school that they'll be going into immediately, but possibly even the school that they may matriculate to, right? So you just want to spend some time looking into that. I know a lot of people, particularly in our area, who are satisfied with the school, on the lower level and maybe even middle school, but then they decide they want to move up to a more higher rated school for when their kids are older. And that's pretty common because it's things are different than when I was growing up. I lived in the same house from the time I was in kindergarten until I went off to college, right? But I think that the expectation here is that you'll live in a home for a few years. I think that it's important, no matter how long you plan on being in a home, that you consider the school, because the home and the location that you buy in is the same home you have to sell, which means that if you bought a house in this area where the school is less than desirable, just because you didn't do research into the school doesn't mean that the next buyers are not. Or you may actually exclude a whole market of buyers. If you buy a home in an area that the school isn't so great, then there may be a whole segment of buyers who don't even consider your home because of the school. So I think it's important, from an investment standpoint, when you think about who you can market your home to. So if you do not consider the schools, you may not be able to market to those people who are really looking into the schools. And typically what we see is there are a couple of ties between good schools or better rated schools and homes. So a lot of times your better rated schools, you're going to have a better neighborhood, a home with an area with more amenities, maybe a little bit nicer, quieter, maybe something that more people are interested in. The next thing is stability. So usually when you have a market where it's more desirable, then word of mouth gets around. Other people know that it is a good area with better rated schools. And so people want to get into that community, right? And so then finally, even if you don't have kids, there may be people who know, okay, well, the highest rated schools, higher sales prices. Like those two kind of go hand in hand. Even here in Fairfax County, our highest rated public school is in the highest or most expensive zip code. Now, that doesn't mean that when you're looking for a home, you have to buy a home in the most expensive area, but I think that it is important that you research the different schools, that you spend some time, again, whether you have kids or not, that you spend some time seeing what's available in the area, what people are saying. I research schools a lot. As a parent, I've done it many times, and then I've also do it a lot for our business. And so there are a couple of websites that I frequent. And that's niche.com, which you've heard me mention before. And I like niche.com because they give you a lot of insight into the different categories and how each area is weighted when they're determining the school's rating. But one thing I don't necessarily love about their system is I feel that they're very generous with some of their ratings, meaning that you're hard pressed to find a school that has below a B rating. And so, alternatively, we have great schools, which is, I believe, even more popular with parents. Um, and again, and I actually feel like I feel like their rating system is a little bit more harsh, in my opinion. I feel like there are very few schools that have higher ratings there. Recently, US News started rating elementary schools. They typically or previously had only done high schools. So US News is another one I really like because it's mostly about test scores with US News. And then finally, Public School Review is probably my favorite, but they don't rate all schools. But Public School Review is probably my favorite because they look at a number of different factors, including student to teacher ratio, as well as the number of students in advanced placement, test scores, things of that nature. So I recommend that you check them all out or a few of them out. If you're not a parent, maybe you don't have to spend as much time researching it. But if you are a parent, you may want to spend a little bit more time on doing that research, especially if you're relocating, because it's even more difficult when you don't know anything about the area. A lot of times, it comes down to a couple of different things when you have a family you're relocating here. So schools may be a big deal. That may be of importance to you. But then also you have to take into consideration commute and your budget. If you can let us know, what your top priorities are, then we'll know we can help guide you and figure out where you want to be. But you have to let us know, like, these are the most important things. And again, we can't necessarily tell you which schools are the great schools or the best schools. That's for you to decide for yourself. But we can definitely point you in the right direction towards those resources so you can figure it out. Because, like I said, this client at the beginning of the story did not do any research. They just found a house and it was a nice looking house. So they bought the nice looking house. And then finally, I want to circle back to what I said at the beginning about the house is that it was a nice looking house, but it does affect how you're able to sell your home because even in a market that it was starting to heat up because this was like kind of towards the beginning of the pandemic. Even in a market that was kind of heating up, it still took a little bit longer to sell their home because homes in that particular area just did not sell as quickly. And I do believe that the school is a part of it. It was not an area, rentals did not fly off the market in the area. Sales were not, there were not a lot of sales in the area. And I do believe that there's a direct correlation because real estate is all about location, 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 location. And that just was not the best location being tied to one of those less than desirable schools. Get some water. All right. So last week, we actually had someone ask us a few questions about Lake Ridge. And so we said that we would focus on Lake Ridge as our community feature this week. Abraham was going to prepare some numbers for us for Lake Ridge. We're going to try and get that video up. Unfortunately, Abraham is a little under the weather at the moment, so he's not able to join me tonight. But hopefully we'll have an opportunity just to record those numbers so that we can get those up on the channel before our next live stream. So hopefully we'll be able to get that out to you guys within the next few days. But we will talk about Lake Ridge. So Lake Ridge is another large planned community here in Northern Virginia. So it's a pretty big suburb, made of mostly single family homes. It's, I want to say, what is it? Over 7,500 acres. It's a wooded area, kind of has more of a park like feel to it. I would say it doesn't give a rural feel, although there are a lot of trees. It's just that it's really almost park like setting. And there are over, excuse me, there are over 7,200 homes in Lake Ridge, and that's going to include single families, townhouses. There are even a couple of apartment complexes and condos. And so Lake Ridge kind of reminds me of a cross between two areas in Fairfax County. And that's going to be Reston, which is the largest planned community in all of Northern Virginia, and then Kingstown, which is the second largest, and actually, excuse me, all of Fairfax County. And Lake Ridge is actually going to be kind of in between those two size wise. And it's kind of one of those self contained communities where when you live there, you have the opportunity to do all of your recreation, all of your living, all the creature comforts that you know and love are there. So you don't have to leave the area when you're not at work, when you're not at school. You can pretty much live in the area. It's an area where people who enjoy the outdoors really enjoy. And that's because it actually borders the Occoquan Reservoir. So some of the areas have boat ramps. You have lots of outdoor activities to do in the area. You're also going to have a huge homeowners association. So they have five pools, five Olympic-sized pools. They have tennis courts and basketball courts, volleyball courts. There's even a golf course. And so you have a lot of those creature comforts available to you in Lake Ridge. And so when you live there, there's also shopping opportunities there. So there are a couple of different, either plazas or strip malls there. Actually, it's actually home to our second favorite pizza shop. So if you're in Lake Ridge, you should check out Presto Pizza. That is Abraham and my favorite spot. We actually stop by there pretty frequently when we're showing properties in Lake Ridge. And let's see what else. There's just a lot to do in the area. Like I said, it reminds me of a Kingstown. And when you're there on the weekends, you can pretty much run all your errands. You can do a lot of your shopping in that area. As far as commute, it's probably one of the more manageable commutes from Woodbridge. Depending on your location, you could be just, 3 minutes from 95. You're only, I want to say, it's kind of a great in between spot. Like you could be 20 minutes from Quantico, or you could be 20 minutes from Fort Belvoir. So it's a place where you can work in a couple different areas and still get there pretty quickly. You're still going to be pretty far from a metro if you're at Lake Ridge. The closest metro is going to be Springfield, which is over here in Fairfax County. So the closest metro is going to be the Franconia Springfield Metro, which is going to be probably about 10 to 12 miles away, depending on your location within Lake Ridge. And then there is the VRE though. So they're only about 3 miles from a VRE, which, if you're going into Crystal City or you're going into Arlington, that might actually be even better than trying to get on 95. So it's a location with a lot of options when it comes to commute and where you want to be. So long as you're not going someplace like Tyson's, it's actually maybe a good consideration. This goes a little bit faster when I don't have Abraham here to chit chat with me about what's going on. Let me see 1 second if I have a few more things about Lake Ridge. 1 second. That is going a little bit faster. So next up, I do have, and feel free, excuse me, if you have any questions or comments, we have a few folks watching. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to ask them. Usually we address the questions at the end of each segment. So if you guys have anything you want to add or ask a question, feel free to drop that in the comments and I'll answer those right now. Also, if you haven't already, please check out down the link in the description for the perfect home questionnaire. You complete that questionnaire and either myself or Abraham will get back with you to answer any questions you may have about your relocation and your plans to move to Northern Virginia in the near future. So if you haven't already, please check out the perfect home questionnaire, which is linked down below. All right, on to things to do. So for this one, I wanted to highlight something that is actually going on was actually going to kick off this week. So if you're familiar with Northern Virginia, you may have heard of Occoquan. So Occoquan is a small historic town just south of Fairfax County on the Occoquan River. It has about 1,000 residents, about 20 minutes from DC. Really cute little quaint town. Has lots of older shops and specialty stores. Really cool place to visit any time of year. We like to go there, park, and just walk around like their little old town area. Lots of really nice restaurants and shops there. And so they're going to reintroduce the Occoquan Holiday Fest this coming weekend. So on November 20th, they're going to start their Holiday Fest, which runs from November 20th until December 12th. Until December 12th. And so every weekend from this coming weekend until then, they're going to have different events going on. So this coming weekend is the Christmas tree lighting. So that's going to be on November 20th. A lot of the stores are going to stay open late. So the stores and restaurants are going to stay open. The stores and restaurants are going to stay open later. So they usually would close around 8. So a lot of stuff's going to stay open past 8 o'clock. And so this particular weekend, you'll be able to go and see the Christmas tree lighting. So if you don't want to go into DC for that huge tree lighting, there's also one in Old Town Alexandria. But if you want something a little bit more low key, a little bit more quiet, then you can check out the Holiday Fest that's going to begin in the Occoquan tree lighting ceremony, which is this Saturday night. In each weekend, there's going to be different events going on. So that's this weekend. The very next weekend, they're going to have the Holiday Artisan Market, the Holiday Artisan Market. And so that's going to be on the 4th and the 5th. And during that time, you're going to see Santa, but you're also going to have the opportunity to shop there. So there's going to be the opportunity to, there's going to be opportunity to shop there and check out the local wares. So it's going to be a lot of people who have homemade bath and body products, homemade soaps and oils, lots of baked goods, handmade crafts, things of that nature. So that's going to be on the 4th and the 5th. In addition to that, there's also going to be a fire pit where you can roast marshmallows and have s'mores, do the whole hot chocolate thing. So, just a complete winter wonderland. So if that's your thing, check that out, the 4th and the 5th. And then finally, on that last weekend, then you're going to see, which is the 11th and the 12th, on that last weekend, they are going to do readings of Christmas Carol. I have not seen a Christmas Carol since, probably since I was in like high school. So there are going to be readings of a Christmas Carol on the 11th and the 12th, as well as a few other events, including a gingerbread making contest, which I've heard is actually pretty competitive. Like there's like 3 tiers of entry, and you have to like meet all these rules. Like what type are you going to do? Are you doing traditional or like modern decor? So pretty serious gingerbread competition at some point between now and the 12th as well. So if you're interested in the Holiday Fest, make sure you check that out. As I said, it's a small town, so parking is limited, but you can park at the commuter lot at Route 123 in Woodbridge. So that commuter lot will have shuttles for several hours. I want to say from like 12 to 8 each weekend. So be sure to check that out. If you can't make it for the Holiday Fest, I think you should check it out anyway. Even if you can't make it this weekend, there are lots of shops there. I mean, there are 2 gourmet chocolate shops in like this small little town. There are a number of different restaurants, little breakfast spot, Secret Garden Cafe, pie place is probably the most popular pie bakery there is in Northern Virginia. It's called Mom's Apple Pie. That's located in Occoquan. Probably going to swing by there in a few days and get apple pie for Thanksgiving if I don't feel like baking. So definitely check it out. Great place. There's actually a shop I want to check out when we go back there. And it's called Man Overboard, and it is a store with specialty crafts and home decor just for man caves and she sheds. And I don't have a she shed, but I think I might want one. So I'm going to check out Man Overboard. Let's go ahead and take a look at some comments. Let's see. Hold on here. So we have Abraham. He says that I'm doing a great job. So thank you, Abraham. I appreciate the vote of confidence. I did not know you would be watching, but thank you if you're still watching. I appreciate that. Jakir says, is there any chance to cooling down the housing market in the Lake Ridge area? That's a good question. I actually did a little bit of looking. By cooling down, I'm sure you mean are the prices going to drop? And I'm not sure, but what we have seen over just the last few weeks is that the number of listings have dropped. And so I was just doing some preliminary research, just to kind of get a feel for the market as I was preparing for today's video. And I noticed that there are half as many new listings in October as there were in September. So I don't know what that means for the coming market. I know we're entering into the winter market. It does tend to slow down, but even when I looked at October of last year, there still were substantially more homes on the market in October of last year than this year. So be interested to see what's going to happen there. Is a 39% drop in listings from October of last year. So I don't know what that's going to mean for prices. I think that one thing that we've seen, and we mentioned this in last week's video, is we are seeing the days on market creep up a little bit. And so hopefully that may be a sign of the market softening a little bit, but it's too early to call. It's too early to say. So we'll have to just kind of take a wait and see approach and see what happens over like the next 90 days. Let's see, what did Abraham say? Abraham says, I think we should go to the one in Old Town. I'm going to go ahead and assume he meant the Christmas tree lighting in Old Town. I think that we can do that. I think we may be able to make that happen. We'll have to check it out and see. I'll have to check the weather. I'm not the biggest fan of cold. So we'll have to see what the weather is going to be like when they light the Christmas tree. But perhaps it's a possibility. I think that we can probably put a video on the channel of I think we should actually hit up all three, and then we can do like a little compilation video of all the Christmas tree lightings in the DC metro area. So maybe so. Does anybody else have any questions? I feel like things went a little bit more quickly because I don't have Abraham here to banter with and to talk through each of these things. I know that I'm going to say to Abraham, as I know he's watching, that the video is a little bit shorter. And so I think that when you say that I'm long-winded, you may be wrong. Just want to throw that out there. Okay. Well, unfortunately, one of the things that we were planning on showing today was the market stats, and that does usually take a little bit of time. And so, like I said, hopefully we'll have a chance to get up between now and our next video. If not, we may have to just throw another video up with the stats for Prince William so that we can stay on track with our weekly schedule. Okay. Well, unfortunately, I think that is all we're going to have this evening. And that's because, like I said, I think the market stats is a pretty big part of it. We're going to try and get that up soon. But if you have any questions about the market or about relocating, be sure to check out that Perfect Home questionnaire, which is going to be linked down below in the description. We look forward to seeing you on the next video. Next week, I anticipate my husband returning. And so next week, you'll be able to catch both of us. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your time, and I'll see you next week.